All right, let's just jump right into this explainer because we've got a truly remarkable story to break down from the pitch today. We're looking at how South Africa went from early tournament disarray to securing a historic spot in the World Cup knockouts. If you've been following the group stages, you know the narrative can flip in the blink of an eye, and honestly, no team exemplifies that sudden, spectacular shift quite like the South African squad. We are going to unpack the tactics, the drama, and the massive implications of their breakout performance. You know, when we're talking about international football, it's so easy to just get lost in the standings, right? Goal differentials, the raw stats. But at its core, this sport is deeply emotional. The quote we're seeing perfectly captures what was on the line here. This victory over South Korea wasn't just some mathematical progression out of the group stage. It was this profound moment of hope and pure joy for a nation that has been through so much. It's a reminder of exactly why we watch the game. So, here's our roadmap for today. 1. A historic turnaround. 2. Tactical surprises. 3. Silencing critics. 4. Inspiring youth. 5. Africa shines. And finally, 6. The road ahead. Let's start with section 1. A historic turnaround. Okay, think back to their opening match against Mexico. General consensus? They looked completely devoid of ideas. Just disjointed, struggling to find any sort of rhythm whatsoever. But fast forward to match day 3 against South Korea, and wow, we saw a completely different team. They were dynamic, they created a ton of chances, and quite frankly, they were vastly superior to their opponents. It's a classic example of learning from defeat, and using that early disagreement to build an unshakable belief. Moving on to section 2, tactical shifts and surprises. So the big question is, what actually changed out there on the pitch? Well, their success definitely wasn't an accident. They made this very conscious choice to attack early, bringing this high-risk, forward-moving mentality that completely derailed South Korea's usual possession-based rhythm. They fought aggressively for literally every single loose ball. It sounds like a cliche to say the team that wants it more wins, but honestly, their body language told the whole story. They just had this unmatched hunger. And the contrast on the pitch was just stunning. While South Africa was out there looking like a completely different beast, hungry, physical, relentless, South Korea seemed to suffer a massive letdown. I mean, after beating Czechia on match day 1, they looked complacent, almost entirely devoid of intensity. They even benched their absolute icon, Son, after some poor previous performances, and ended up managing just a single shot on target from Oh Hun-gyu. They completely fumbled their advantage. Now focus on the number 2 for a second. That is exactly how many massive, game-saving stops were made by their captain and goalkeeper, Ronwen Williams. But his impact, it went way beyond just making incredible highlight reel saves. Williams basically dictated the entire defensive structure. He kept the backline calm, incredibly organized, and totally resolute against South Korea's late pushes. When the pressure was highest, he stepped up and proved his immense value to this historic run. All right, section 3, silencing the tournament critics. Let's shift over to the sidelines for a minute, because Coach Hugo Broos went through an absolute emotional roller coaster. Pre-tournament, he was facing intense media criticism back home for his selections, specifically leaving out a very familiar goalkeeper to make Ronwen Williams his captain. Then, after that disjointed match day 1, the public doubts were deafening. People were actively questioning his leadership. But at the final whistle against South Korea, he literally falls to his knees in pure, vindicated joy. He made the tough calls, and his squad backed him up brilliantly on the biggest stage. This brings us to section 4, inspiring the next generation. Now, this might just be the most inspiring takeaway of our entire explainer. A staggering 75% of this historic South African squad plays their club football right at home, in the domestic league. Contrast that with the usual heavyweights, who rely almost entirely on international superstars scattered across top European leagues. It's a huge difference. And you know, this means everything. By relying on this homegrown talent, the team becomes this tangible, real-world inspiration for the next generation. It proves to local youth that, hey, you don't actually have to move to Europe to become world-class. You can hone your skills locally and still conquer the global stage. This massively boosts the future of South Africa's domestic league infrastructure. That local pride, it's directly translating into World Cup history. Let's pan out a bit for section 5, Africa shines on world stage. South Africa's success is actually part of this really thrilling, wider trend we're seeing of African nations stepping up and shining on the world stage. You've got Cape Verde acting as this incredible minnow team, catching everyone's attention, Egypt looking strong and poised to advance, and Morocco already confidently moving through. And now, South Africa joins them. It's just a phenomenal moment for the entire continent. I absolutely love this quote we pulled for the explainer because it really hits the nail on the head regarding a universal truth in sports. These teams might not always have the most individually famous players. They might not be playing in the absolute wealthiest leagues in the world. But when they step onto that pitch and play with pure heart, genuine belief, and immense national pride, they completely refuse to rule themselves out. They prove that a collective belief and sharp tactical execution can utterly topple teams that are just coasting on individual reputations. Finally, Section 6, the road ahead, Canada. So what's next for this underdog squad riding this massive wave of momentum? Well, South Africa has drawn Canada next. And crucially, they are going to play this match in Los Angeles. This is a massive, massive bonus. By playing in a neutral venue, they completely avoid the brutal prospect of facing a host nation in a packed, hostile stadium in a city like Toronto or Vancouver. Because of that neutral ground, both of these teams are going to step onto the pitch genuinely believing they have what it takes to win and advance. And as a really interesting side note here, avoiding South Korea and Los Angeles, that actually benefits Canada too, because there's an enormous South Korean demographic in the LA region. If South Korea had advanced, that stadium would have effectively transformed into a totally hostile home game atmosphere against the Canadians. So the way this bracket has naturally fallen, it sets up a fascinating, balanced clash between South Africa and Canada, where both sides honestly feel like they've dodged a bullet and hold an upper hand. Armed with domestic pride, tactical dynamism, and an entire nation's hope, how far can this South African squad actually go? Well, we're just going to have to watch the knockout rounds to find out. But one thing is absolutely certain right now. By silencing their critics, trusting in their homegrown talent, and playing with unrelenting heart, South Africa has already given their country a victory for the ages. Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and definitely keep your eyes on this fascinating squad as the tournament continues.